In this interview, I meet up with Netta Gorman. Netta is happily free from refined sugar and grains for 5 years when she stopped eating processed food as a temporary experiment to help her digestive issues. As a former sweet tooth, nobody was more amazed than her at how good she felt once all forms of sugar were out of her life. Let's welcome Netta. Thank you so much for joining me today and being here. I wanted to start by asking you, you have been free from refined sugar and grains for almost 5 years, and how has this helped you since then?
Yes, well, I just tried it as a very temporary experiment for just 2 weeks because I was having terrible digestive problems. And I had, for the last 15 years or so, since my 30s, I was 45 at the time when I finally decided to do what I'd never tried before, which was to stop sugar and refined grains. So that means sugar in all its forms and flour or things made with sugar and flour, which is like 80% of what's on the shelves.
Yeah.
And so it certainly wasn't to lose weight because I didn't necessarily need to lose weight, but I needed to go to the bathroom more often than once a week. So yeah, I was suffering a lot with my digestion, and I had consulted a nutritional therapist, and yeah, she said, well, look, try this, like elimination kind of diet thing. And I just thought she was crazy. I was like, I'm not going to give up chocolate and sugar, that's not my problem. I'm just fine with sugar, But, you get to a point sometimes, especially at that age in your mid 40s often, where it's just, you've got some kind of health problem that is backing you into a corner where you are suffering to the point where, you've got a choice. You either do something about it, or if you have already tried stuff, you do something that you've never tried, which is my case, or you carry on suffering. You don't really have, that kind of those two options. It's actually one option. You got to do something. So I tried it. I never thought I'd ever do it. And she also suggested I add some more probiotic foods, not capsules, but actual foods, like lacto-fermented foods. So I tried that too. And after 2 weeks, I felt so much better. She said, you can start, including other foods now back into your diet. And I was like, no, I'm okay. I feel great. I'll just go on another week. That's okay. And another week and another week. And I never looked back. It's been 5 years.
Yeah. The feeling is still great that you don't eat. Were you a sweet person? Like some of us are like,
I was a total sweet tooth. People would make desserts just for me.
Wow.
Yeah, I could not go a day without something sweet. I could not just eat one square of chocolate. It had to be the whole bar. I didn't have like a compulsive eating behavior or binging or anything like that. It was what I considered to be just normal sweet tooth, and my identity was wrapped up in that sweet tooth.
Yeah. But you were able to give it up.
I was able to give it up. I would never have believed it possible if you'd have told me that beforehand. In fact, I fought against it for a long time. Yeah. But, the proof is in the pudding, excuse the pun.
Yeah, same for me. I would say that right now until I tried, I guess.
Right. It's just so impossible to think, wait a minute, not just sugar, not just chocolate, but like pretty much all processed foods. It's like, well, what's left? Like, and people ask me all the time, well, what do you eat? As if something doesn't come in a box or a bag or a packet or a can or something, we don't know what to make of it.
Yeah.
And I tell you, what's left is food.
Exactly. So why is eating refined sugar and grains bad for us? Like, what's the badness behind it?
Yeah, well, over and above, we don't believe it's bad for us because it tastes so good. So it's like a bit of a paradox to say, oh, it's so yummy, but at the same time, it's bad for you. So I don't believe that food in and of itself has some kind of moral value, that it's good or bad, but the biological facts are there, that when you eat refined forms of sugar and flour, so especially white sugar and white flour, but brown flour is pretty close behind anything that's in powder form, or granular form. It creates a whole lot of metabolic problems in your body. So apart from weight gain, you can have systemic inflammation, it's called. That's inflammation in all your body. Not the same type of inflammation as when you kind of have a bruise or something. It can lead to all kinds of things, like I had signs of a fatty liver. I had bad digestion, which was greatly improved when I cut down on all these foods. So other types of like inflammatory problems could be anything from arthritis, arthrosis, even like athlete's foot. Mine disappeared. Then I had fewer headaches. I had way fewer headaches. I hardly ever get headaches now, whereas I was getting them a few times a month before. My skin's a lot better. I think, I kind of went back in time 10 years. Yeah, so lots and lots of things like that, and it can even affect, they're calling it type 3 diabetes because, sugar can lead to diabetes in the long run, but what they're calling it type 3 diabetes is all the like neurological problems, including Alzheimer's. They found a link with sugar for that too. And the thing with flour is that your body reacts to flour pretty much the same way as it does to sugar.
Yeah. Interesting, right? It's lots to think about, right? Kids, although kids enjoy, right, the sugar and the flour, but more though, right? They got a little bit more interest to it. So how can parents eliminate or reduce refined sugar and grains in their kids' diet? Like how can they?
Yeah, we're the examples for our kids. It's like we've got, some camera on us 24/7. Our kids are watching what we do, what we say, how we behave. And so the first thing I think as a parent for myself is to be a role model. And that doesn't mean to be perfect, but is to walk the walk, so that if you're going to encourage your kids to eat less sweetness or less, refined and processed foods, then, you've got to get behind that yourself as well. Yes. Right? So that's the first thing. And the second thing is the kids, who has the buying power at the grocery store? It's you. You may think your kid does when they throw themselves on the floor in the candy aisle. But at the end of the day, it's you as a parent who has the power and the responsibility, buying power. So the kids can't eat what you don't buy. So it's also to take back that power as consumers and as parents for our own good and for the good of our kids.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. So, and then the other thing is, I know that we're programmed to love sweetness right from birth. Breast milk is sweet, but once we have gotten past that, once we've been weaned, there's no reason to. I think it's just like a belief that you've got to have sweetness in your life for treats, that treat equals sweet, right? It's not a universal truth. It's a belief. And we hold on so strongly to these beliefs. So I get a lot of, kickback from people saying, I don't want to give up the things that I love. I don't want to have a boring, joyless life, And I'm like, well, you don't have to. You change your belief about what sweetness means to you. And you're in charge of that too. You've got that power. It's not easy, but you can do it.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. So does your family follow the same type of eating that you follow as well?
Yeah, it's difficult for me to say they follow because it's not like I'm leading and they're following, but my husband never actually ate much desserts and stuff like that. When we first met, I thought he was weird for not eating desserts, and now I eat less than him. Yeah. So I just caught up with him in the last 20 years. And for our child, I've always kind of, even before I stopped eating sugar, I was pretty sensitized to the whole issue of sugar. And so she's always grown up with like plain yogurt with fruit in it rather than store-bought sweet yogurts, for example. But I mean, I'm just a normal parent. If there's a birthday, there's going to be cake.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty good at, even today, I'm still pretty good at making fancy cakes and decorating them. I haven't stopped. And so, I do realize, and I still live, I don't deny her anything.
Yeah.
And I realize that, it's a social construct that we have of celebrating with food and celebrating especially with sweet food.
Yes.
So I find that if I deny her stuff, it's going to kind of develop some kind of kickback behavior on her end. So I don't say no, but at the same time, I don't buy her a whole bunch of junk.
Yes.
And even recently, at 12 years old, she said to me, "Mum, can you please just stop buying cookies? I don't want any more." And it came from her.
Yeah. So you start modeling, and then, as you said earlier, right, the kids will see to follow you along, right?
Right, exactly. So when she opens the fridge, she'll see, as I said, she'll see plain yogurt, but she can full fat, with no additives, rather than those little yogurt drink tube things. Who has bought those things? Not her. She, so that's all she's ever seen in the fridge.
Yeah, what you have at home in your pantry and fridge.
Right, and then when she's elsewhere, all rules are off in the sense that I'm not going to control what other people give her.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, especially in social context, right? Like when you're celebrating and stuff, it's, you see a table full of food.
Right, and now she has the model of a mother, and especially because she's a preteen girl now, so it's especially important for her to see that she has a mother who absolutely enjoys social occasions without sugar, and I have no less fun, and she sees this. And I don't deny myself anything. I don't want those things. My tastes have changed. The sweetness doesn't taste good to me anymore. So she just sees that it's possible, and it's no big deal.
Yeah. So, for parents, still it's, if they're, what about if they're used to giving their kids something, right? And then you want to start changing this, you see all these good, benefits for not having sugar and grains, right? And then, like, how do you start that process? Like, how do you take it
So
back if
changing
you're...
your habits is a big hurdle, way bigger than actually changing what you eat. It's the habit. It's that kind of automatic, well, what do I give them, right? Yeah. So I can share my screen if you like and give you some ideas.
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. It's like, the problem is not necessarily that the other types of foods don't exist. The problem is often that we just don't have ideas of what to do other than what we've always done.
Yes.
So, we're always being told, eat more vegetables, or get your kids to eat more vegetables, or even hide the vegetables in food, which I don't necessarily agree with. I'm not sure that's particularly healthy to do. I like to make the foods colourful for my child. I think it's a lot more attractive, and there's lots of foods that are naturally colourful. You don't need artificial colours or even artificial flavours to enhance the food. I think that's part of the problem, is we're so used to this high level of colour and flavour that anything under that, anything naturally colourful and flavourful, almost seems kind of boring. So it's to bring down this level, first of all, for the taste. So you can see, even though this is just a regular bowl of vegetables, you've got, red and orange and yellow and green and black and purple. I mean, you've got pretty much all the colors. And what I like to do when she was younger is kind of make little shapes. You don't have to be this fancy, and I certainly am not that fancy, but there's ways of kind of making veggies cute and attractive in this way. Again, not quite that fancy, or even like to make little shapes, or some just something that the kids will enjoy. And I've done that for her. This is pretty simple.
Yes.
Just to offer it on a plate so that a tomato looks like a
nice
person.
nice That's absolutely right.
Sorry.
You want kids to actually see the beauty of it, and you also want to, you can animate it and use imagination, and then kids are like, I'm eating his ears, or I'm eating his, you know what I mean? It just becomes live, right? The food becomes live.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that they want to like interact with the food. It becomes fun rather than this kind of message that we adults often give, which is, you gotta eat your vegetables. And again, this whole thing about hiding them in as if they were, I mean, we ourselves as adults are responsible for giving the message either a positive one or a negative one.
Yeah.
And you can't go around giving a negative message and then complaining that your kids don't want to eat vegetables and fruit,
That
So
makes sense.
we're responsible for that as well. And to also get your kids to experience different types of foods. And we have a game called the tasting game that we play as a family, where we put a scarf over our eyes, and then we make someone taste something, not terrible stuff, just regular food, and they have to guess what it is.
Nice.
We go like across the board for different types of tastes.
Yes.
So sweet, sour, bitter, spicy, and it just makes us more aware of the different flavors that exist.
Yeah.
So make it into a game.
Yes.
So again, some examples of just how to make veggies fun and cute.
That's very nice.
Yeah. And even, with cheese, for example, and with olives, and mixing up fruit and cheese and vegetables as well.
Nice.
Not liquidizing fruit, but eating it whole.
Whole.
Yeah, because liquidizing into juice or smoothies or any kind of, puree or something, it doesn't necessarily, well, juice, there's no fiber, but with purees and with smoothies, it doesn't necessarily lower the amount of fiber, but it does stop it from slowing down the absorption of the natural sugars. The body doesn't distinguish between natural sugars and refined sugars.
Yeah.
So, it's better to eat stuff in its whole form.
Whole form.
Yeah, look, isn't that
Wow.
cute?
Aw.
Isn't that
I will
cute?
eat that.
Right, we'd all eat that. And I make my kid what I call a ghost banana, and I cut a banana in half, and I put like raisins as eyes, and then like an open mouth, and she loves it.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Beautiful.
here's another idea of just making it cute. Right?
Yes. And one other thing is, you can get them involved.
You can get them involved. So let's say, for example, these are hard-boiled eggs, right?
Wow.
So, obviously I wouldn't let my kid boil water and stuff like that, but she has learned how to shell hard-boiled eggs once they're cooked, or to cut them in half, or we've got a thing that kind of cut the slicer thing that all you have to do is bring it down, it slices. And so even in that sense, they can get involved with the process of cooking.
Wow.
I use cookie cutters to cut cheese, not that orange stuff that isn't cheese, but real cheese.
Yeah. Even a picky eater would some kids are picky, right? No matter what it is, right? It's just the way they are, right? Even this creativity actually sometimes will trigger them to eat it.
Yeah. I mean, yes, exactly. So it's fun. Make it fun. It doesn't mean to negate what their natural personality is like, or their natural tastes, but to amplify the positive.
Yes.
Sure.
Beautiful.
And so using cookie cutters is another way. Using just different shapes to make a face or something, why not? Yeah.
Yes. Teaching them
shapes for Christmas, right?
Nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So I mean, these are not all my ideas. I got them, I got them from all over the place. You got Pinterest, you got the web, all kinds of things.
Yes.
According to our level of creativity.
Yes.
And then for their lunch boxes, again, we have the power to decide what goes into their lunchbox and how to make it attractive.
Yes.
And they will eat what we give them. I mean, they may not eat, they have the right to refuse to eat, but you know, what's in their lunchbox is what we as parents choose to give them.
Yes.
They can't go to the store and buy other stuff. They're kids.
Yeah. And the earlier it is, it's better because, you know, when you're at school and you're hungry, right? I mean, a lot of kids eat it there than if they were at home and you gave them same. So it's good training to put it into the lunchbox to
Exactly.
train them a little bit too, because, you know, there's no other food to eat if you're hungry there.
Exactly. And you know, we're often as working parents, we don't have time, you know, to start making fancy things for lunch. But, you know, it doesn't take time to take an apple and put it in their lunchbox. You don't, I mean, it takes way less time than even going to the store and getting applesauce, you know, even if it's unsweetened. Why not just an apple and teach your kids to actually eat foods in their whole forms, you know, rather than, again, liquidize them.
Yes.
I mean, they've got teeth, they know how to chew, right? And then the other thing is, as parents, is, yeah, to get them involved. Obviously, I'm not going to let my kid cut stuff up on her own, but actually, you know, now she's 12, we're starting to teach her how to use a knife. Whereas before, it was like, well, I'll cut the cucumber and you arrange it prettily on the plate, you know, depending on her age, right?
Yeah.
She's learned how to break an egg, you know, so it was a big mess at first, and then she broke the egg, and then, you know, it got better, and then she learned how to separate an egg. Now she breaks it with one hand, you know.
Yes.
Very involved.
Lots of skills, right, within the kitchen.
Right. And we as parents kind of need to know those skills as well. And so we can learn at the same time. And then our children can see that we don't know it all. No. We're learning at the same time as they are.
Yes.
That's very empowering for children. Yeah. So basically it's to make the kitchen into a playground for our kids and into somewhere where they feel that it's playful and fun and safe, and not, you know, somewhere where they have to sneak food that's not allowed. Right. So again, you know, to put the emphasis on these whole foods, but without, well, for me at least, you know, as I said before, you know, all foods are allowed, but the emphasis is on these whole real foods. Yeah. So this is my Facebook page called Life After Sugar, and so that's kind of, you know, and you were asking, you know, what kind of effects does sugar have on people over time. I don't go into too much of that for kids. You know, I don't want to make them feel guilty about eating sugar, but you know, the fact is that over time, you know, if we give lots of sugar to our kids, what we're doing, no guilt trip here, I'm just saying, is we are actually developing, you know, the situation for them in the future to have cravings, weight gain, all kinds of stuff like yeast infections, inflammation, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, I'm just going to stop my screen share, but yeah, so it's like being aware of what the possible outcomes are of overeating sugar and flour, but without the guilt trip.
Yes, those were beautiful pictures. Like, you know, kids will love preparing them as well as eating them, right?
Right, that's the hope, you know, that it becomes fun rather than some kind of, you know, imposed necessity.
Yes. And when you say sugar and grain-free, as you said earlier, focus on the whole foods, the one that comes natural.
Right, because even though we're encouraged by the Canada Food Guide to eat whole grains, if you actually look at what is on the supermarket shelves, there are no whole grains, none. Every single grain has been pulverized into powder, into flour. You know, and I kind of challenge everyone to go out and find a whole grain in its real whole form without being surrounded by flour. I haven't found any.
So, you know, if someone's going to start eliminating or reducing the intake of sugar with their especially with their kids, right? What do you say where should I start? What's the starting point?
Okay, so the starting point, in my opinion, is in the grocery store. It's
Mm.
not in the kitchen, it's one step before that in the grocery store. And so the grocery stores all have the same kind of design where all the fresh produce is on the outskirts of the grocery store, and in the central aisles is where all the processed foods are. And so I always just go around the periphery of the grocery store. That's where you've got fruit and vegetables, meat, fish, seafood, cheese, dairy products, frozen fruit and vegetables, and then you're out.
Mm.
There's very few things that I buy in the central aisles, maybe coconut milk, canned tomatoes, a couple of other things, herbs and spices. That's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm. So don't bring it home. Start bringing less home when you
It's
start off, right? If you're
right, and if we compare with all the tens of thousands of food-like products, I call them food-like products, they're not real food, then yes, it does definitely seem like there's less
mm-hmm.
and less variety. But, over time you sort of realize, well, wait a minute, all that variety wasn't even real food.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite sure, how varied of a diet that is when really it's just a variety of non-foods.
Yes. I find, a lot of the time you eat these foods that are packaged, or the kids actually after lunch, even at school, right? When your teacher and stuff, you notice there's a crash, right? In energy, not they're gaining energy. There's a crash.
Exactly. Energy crash, trouble concentrating, trouble with I can't say it's always ADHD, but like just being jittery and also being hungry every hour or two.
Yeah.
And so because they're not being nourished,
mm-hmm.
and the food, or what passes for food, is not nourishing. So if you give a kid even an oatmeal cookie, it may sound healthy, but it's actually flour and sugar.
Yeah.
Of course they're going to be hungry an hour later. It's like the body not only hasn't been nourished or hasn't recognized it as food, it's also causing, a blood sugar spike and an insulin production, and then this sort of, spike and crash in their blood sugar level. Whereas if you give them some cheese with whole fruit, or plain yogurt with some fruit in, and full fat plain yogurt, which won't make them fat, it's sugar that gives weight gain,
yes.
not fat in food, or a hard-boiled egg or something like that, they'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
They won't feel that sensation that we call hunger.
Yeah, but kids also enjoy things like ice cream, right? I mean, all those other things, how can parents start reducing those? Like, it's harder because they're gonna put up a fight.
You can reduce the frequency. We often kind of we say sugar is bad, but at the same time, paradoxically, we put it on a pedestal for treats only and special occasions, right? And it's a bit of a paradox, because how can you put something that you say is bad as a treat, But so we can make it for special occasions only if that's what we want to do. But very often our special occasions are actually 3 times a day. And so we can maybe just leave it for one day of the weekend, and space it out some more. So, things like that, just space it out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. And in the beginning, there is going to be some fight, right? And if we already have some habit formed and we're trying to break it, especially.
And a lot of the fight comes from parents and grandparents, and again, this is the time to be the model. And I don't mean be a model in the sense of be perfect, not at all, but to be the example for our kids. So if we're examples of grown-ups who can actually accept that we're in the process of a mindset shift and a paradigm shift and a shift in our habits, then that will also help our kids to see, this isn't easy, but I'm doing it for our own collective good.
Yes, yes. And is there something, it might not be true, but is there something in the middle aisle that I could pick up that might be better than what I used to eat?
Oh, definitely, definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, even for me at the beginning of my change in dietary habits, I mean, I was so used to sweet flavors
Yeah.
that I couldn't handle something that was completely non-sweet straight away. So, for example, instead of those like packaged chocolate pudding things, I learned how to make like a chocolate pudding, but with either coconut milk or an avocado as a base and cocoa, good quality cocoa, and a little bit of maple syrup because we're in Quebec,
Yes.
or half a banana for the sweetness. And then I'm not a big fan today of putting stuff in a blender, but at the time, at the beginning, that's definitely a better alternative than those kind of fake puddings that are super processed.
Yes. Do you think this kind of living is more time consuming for parents?
Not for me. I mean, it's a popular myth and probably a good excuse to help us stay where we are. But there's always ways of cutting down on prep time. And for example, because I work full time and I have family, right? So sometimes I just pass by the grocery store and buy a cooked chicken, and even bagged salad or something, and just throw that together in 10 minutes. It's actually faster than cooking up some pasta.
Mm-hmm.
So, some kind of protein, whether it's animal-based or plant-based, you have no preference, with veggies or salad or, that is plenty.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only filling, but it's also much faster to prepare than cooking potatoes or rice or pasta.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Makes some sense. And also, when you're cooking with your kids and getting them involved as a family, and it's actually a good bonding time, right? I mean, it's actually
Absolutely.
where habits are formed in that area, right? So tell us.
Exactly. Exactly. And they can, for in our family at least, she can see that both parents know how to cook,
Mm,
and it's not, we try not to, even though, more often than not, it's me, we try not to have that kind of divide between, just mom is in the kitchen.
mhm, mhm. And getting them involved, obviously, we're teaching them so many skills that, you don't want them to leave your house without knowing how to cook because, right?
Right, because I teach kids who are 17 to 19-year-old and are in their own apartment for the first time in their life. And, the things I ask them, what do you know how to cook? And they just don't.
Yes,
And part of it is because, they never had to.
yes, yes. And then guess what? When they move out, what are they going to go for? All the middle aisles, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a craft dinner fest.
Yeah, that's the easiest way to get through the day, right? Because they haven't.
Right. But it backfires because not only does it not nourish them, and then they have trouble at school and trouble staying focused and all the rest of it. But they tell me, but I don't have the money to buy good food. And then I dig a little deeper and then find out that actually they're spending their money on other stuff.
Mhm.
Not that they don't have the money, it's just that their priorities are elsewhere.
Do you think this form of eating is actually costly?
No,
Then,
no, it's no more costly because you actually, funnily enough, end up eating less volume
yeah.
because it's more nourishing. My grocery bill has not gone up. It's, I think, probably gone down over the years, because some real foods are totally cheap. Eggs are cheap,
Mhm.
and beans and pulses are cheap. And the good quality proteins and good quality unprocessed fats are very filling, so you end up eating less anyway. So
Mhm.
these are all, yeah, popular myths. It takes more time, it's more expensive, it's boring, it's not varied, I wouldn't be able to keep it up long term. These are very, very common myths.
Yeah. And when you go to, other social events where they have a buffet of, this food in front of you, mean, obviously you're going to have a craving, like you're going to see it and you're going to start thinking, I probably want some of that or some of this, right? How do you stop yourself? Or do you just know because it's so colorful to go for the right stuff?
Well, this is the magic that I discovered of eating less or even no sweetness that I would never have been able to imagine before. But this whole concept of cravings belongs to the world of processed sugar and flour.
Mm.
And it doesn't actually exist anymore when you don't feed those cravings with those types of foods. They end up, at least they did for me, end up just not tasting good. And so you don't want what doesn't taste good to you, right? So it's not out of some kind of holier than thou, I'm better than you, kind of, I'm only eating good food, no, it's, I don't want stuff that doesn't taste good to me and doesn't make me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I am naturally attracted to more colorful, natural whole foods. But at the beginning, you're right, it does feel like, you're stopping yourself from eating XYZ. Yes, it does, because you're in this kind of, trajectory of always having done it, and any change will make you feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
So
so
there's a
it's
time frame.
yeah, and good, and actually what helps with cravings is to eat good, nourishing food and whole unprocessed fats as well. Nuts, whole fat dairy, if you're not allergic to dairy, cheese, which actually doesn't have, hard cheeses don't even have lactose anymore in them. So anything that fills you up kind of calms those cravings.
Mm-hmm.
And plus time.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a vicious cycle. The more you eat, the more you want of it.
Right, yeah, and we're kind of in a society where it's just normal to eat 4, 5, 6 times a day, and they say, snack 3 meals plus 2 snacks to keep your blood sugar level. Oh, it'll be level, okay, right up here, right, high level. But if you want to bring your blood sugar down, which is kind of the way to try to prevent all these metabolic diseases, then you're better off eating less often, but real food.
Yes, yes. How would you say I would explain this to a child? Like, how can I go at it to them? I don't want to say that you're going to get a lot of diseases. They're like, it's not to scare them too, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. It's not useful to get into all the details and go by like fear mongering about sugar and flour. It's not useful. In fact, it's counterproductive.
Yeah.
So as I was saying before, is to put the emphasis on the goodness and the colors and the creativity and the fun, and like make them kind of aware of how much energy they have. And it's a different type of energy that a child develops when they're well nourished. It's not this I can't sit still type of energy. It's a more long-lasting energy. It's like, I make the analogy of, if you want to build a fire, do you want to use paper and twigs to have a quick fire, but that dies out quickly as well? Or do you want to put some, good hard wood logs and have a long-lasting fire?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, the more, then you have to feed it more, right? If you have paper, you have to be throwing paper.
Right, and exactly, and you're never really, you don't really ever get the heat. You're spending more energy feeding the fire than you are, appreciating the goodness of the fire.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Do you think you've already answered it a little bit, like I'm going about changing our diet in our family, and we have children various ages, right? I mean, one might find it easier to adapt to the change in the other, right? Of course, children are all different. And should we have a cheat day, or is that counterproductive?
Okay, so again, the whole notion of cheating belongs with cravings, in that, that paradigm of, it's actually from I think the diet mentality of, I'm going to eat a certain way, and then when I've reached my goal, I'm going to go back to normal eating, right? As if how you eat is not really how you want to eat. It's just because you got to eat good stuff, or you got to eat fewer calories or whatever. That's what I call the diet mentality. Whereas if you eat how it makes you, how you want to feel,
Mm-hmm.
then the whole notion of cheating just doesn't come into it, right? It's like being married, it's like, well, can I cheat on a Saturday? Yeah, no, you're married.
That'll be a problem.
And yet we not only accept it but encourage it for food.
Yeah, yeah, it does bring in a different type of mind frame for the kids, right? I just have to do it all these 5 days, then I can cheat, right? It's like you're waiting to cheat, and that's not really.
Well, the message that sends them, the kids, and to ourselves as well as parents, is that eating well is not something that you really want to do.
Mm.
It's like a paradoxical message again, where you're saying, well, good food is good, but at the same time, it's bad food is better. And then the kids are like, what?
Confused.
Confused.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so again, it's up to us as parents to send a clear message. We've got to believe it ourselves. Not only believe it, but live it.
Mm-hmm. And during celebrations, you've kind of said it earlier, it's okay to make something that's the normal sweet stuff, like the cake or something, or do you have a special cake you would make?
No, I mean, for me personally, just cakes are off my radar for celebrations now. Don't need a cake. I just turned 50 in April. I didn't need or want a cake. I don't need a cake to celebrate anymore. I need people who I love around me. And we were in lockdown, so it wasn't a big party. It's just my husband and our kid. But I mean, again, it's that for me personally, I've had that 5 years to develop other ways of seeing celebrations. But when my child turned 12, she wanted a cake. I made her a cake, until the day she says, Mom, I don't want a cake anymore. She'll get a cake.
Mm-hmm. So leave it like those days are good to make what you are used to, right? So it doesn't become like a punishment. We're not going to make a cake because we're not sugar free. Like,
Exactly. I don't want it to become some kind of, forbidden pleasure or something, and then she goes off and binges in
somewhere
secret.
else.
Yeah. So she doesn't have any of those kinds of behaviors because it's not off the menu. Yeah.
Yeah, it's available.
Yeah.
Make it a choice.
Right.
Make
Exactly.
it a choice. Yeah. And a lot of the parents right now who are watching this are thinking of other alternative educational options, right? And if they start homeschooling or unschooling at home, this is a great opportunity to even if you hadn't in the past been sending what they liked, or processed food, or those Lunchables or whatever that comes in packages. And if you were doing that, this would be a great time to make a family culture around food, because this is a great beginning, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And you can start gradually. You don't have to change
Yeah.
everything, so that the child feels they've lost something, but you can start, replacing the Lunchables with more healthy options that gradually. But a child won't let himself starve to death.
No.
Right. And as parents, we're always scared. Oh my God, he refused to eat. He's gonna starve. He skipped a meal. They won't starve. They won't die. You're doing them a great favor by actually not giving them sort of fake foods every 2 hours.
Yeah.
But it takes time.
Yeah. It's like, I used to remember we had dog back then, and then we would bring in a new food which is healthier for the dog. And the first time you put it, because it's used to the other one, right? The first time I would put it, it would come and like look at it and just walk away, because it's like it's not the food I eat, right? And then you could see the head turning in his brain every time he goes and sniff and walks away. I know. And then after like 3 hours, he's like, I guess this is it.
Yeah, exactly. And we have to, be able to expect that as a normal reaction.
Yeah.
And it's actually when I watched the movie The Magic Pill, which I
Oh,
highly recommend,
nice.
that you could see this little girl had autism, all the signs of autism. She, and they switched her food from like, I don't know, goldfish to actual real food. And like for 2 days, she refused to eat. And the parents were freaking out, but the person in charge of the whole change was like, she'll eat, you know. But it was really, really tough for the parents. And I'm in no way advocating to, to like
Starve.
take food away from your kids or anything like that, but just to know that that kind of refusal, is a normal reaction. They're trying to get the control back.
And change is always hard. And then you have to be
Everybody.
patient.
Yeah.
Patient. Try it
Yeah.
again. Don't give up, right?
Right. And funnily enough, actually, kids get used to change way faster than adults.
Yes, yes, yes. And we're just afraid sometimes.
Right. Afraid. That's right. Afraid and kind of, we've got this natural parental desire to do the best for our kids. And when we feel that maybe we're not, even though we are, then it's kind of normal to quick, let's just undo, rewind, and just go back to normal. But you've got to build your new normal.
Yeah, yeah. And you have to take on inside of you, not even tell your kids, but your mindset has to be, if I feed this to my kids, it's actually harmful in the long run and even short run, in the short form, right? Because they don't have the energy. Like I've seen it at school after lunch, everybody crashes.
Yeah, and that's considered normal.
Yeah.
But it's only normal in a paradigm where non-foods and sugar and flour are normal. If we take ourselves out of that paradigm, then there's a new normal.
And as I said, this is a great opportunity. That's why I wanted to have you on this, summit, because this is a great opportunity for parents to step into that. Start slowly. Don't overchange it overnight. Don't try that. It's going to be, a lot of resistance for sure. But take your time and then just get in the kitchen and make some colorful foods like you've shown, right? Just create imagination, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I know. And I know a lot of parents don't have necessarily that type of imagination or ideas and stuff. But luckily for us, we're in an age where Pinterest is just around the corner.
Yeah.
And you can get that inspiration somewhere without having to, it doesn't have to come from your own imagination.
Yeah, we're so surrounded by it at our fingertip, right? And we can get the kids to look it up, and that becomes a teaching point and get them involved, right? It's just
Absolutely. If they can feel that they're one step ahead of the parents, that is very empowering.
Yeah, give them that opportunity. Even write out the recipe. Now you're teaching them how to write on a piece of paper. You know what I mean? There's so many skills after skills you can build into that activity.
And you're a math teacher. I get my kid to calculate the recipes and the quantities and, grams to milliliters to cups and stuff like that.
Yeah, so much math, so much language you can teach, and I see all these YouTube channels now having cooking shows with little kids. They're the ones who's hosting it. It's pretty good. Like they're learning to present, not only just cook, but now they're presenting, right?
Yeah, my daughter films herself
Nice.
explaining what she's doing.
So are those on your YouTube? You were saying there's a YouTube channel. I'm sorry, not YouTube, so Facebook.
No, I don't put any films of my kid on the internet, but I've got my Facebook page, but it's very, very quiet because all my stuff is in French at the moment because I'm in Quebec. So eventually, towards the end of 2020, I'll make a YouTube channel in English. I'd like to have a podcast in English as well to interview people who have begun to reduce sugar. And then, and I'll have my website, but I'm taking this up.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your information. And it's actually, it's going to be, for a lot of us, it might be a slow process because we do have a bit, habits are hard to break, right? But it's a good start.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're better off starting than not. You don't have to be perfect. There's no cheating, there's no slipping, there's no failing.
Yeah.
One little step is better than nothing.
Exactly. Thank you so much for coming in today.
You're very welcome. Thank you.